My name is Christian Brim, Core Group. Thanks for attending. We have a very special guest today, Jodi Roberts, with NovaReady. Is that okay? Wanted to make sure that's correct name. Before we get started, a couple of ground rules. The webinar is being recorded, so any questions that you might ask in the Q&A, don't let it be too personal or anything you don't want shared on the interwebs. And the second is, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will answer them as we go along. So without any further ado, I'll turn the floor over to you, Jodi.
Awesome, great, thank you. So everyone can see that first slide, how to grow your company?
I think we can, yeah.
All right, if you can't, feel free to leave a comment in the Q&A. So hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled How to Grow Your Company Through Customer Insights. This webinar is for you if you want to learn how to grow your business with intention, because a lot of businesses, a lot of business owners, whether they want to admit it or not, feel like they're just guessing when it comes to marketing. And in a lot of cases, especially when they're first getting started, their business grew opportunistically. So in the early days, you're basically taking what you can get. But whether you're just getting started with your business and you want to know what signs to look for to optimize your growth, if you've been in business a few years with some success and you want to take your business to the next stage of growth, or you've been in business for years and you're tired of guessing with your marketing and you're feeling like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that it sticks, this webinar will help you. I want to do a little exercise, and I want you to think about something. What if you knew exactly where to spend your marketing dollars? And what if you could grow a sales team that understood your customers as well as you do? What if you could move from being an opportunistic business with your sales and your marketing and move to have that predictable growth, that coveted predictable growth? Because over and over, entrepreneurs waste their time, they waste their energy, and they waste money by not having clarity on their key buyer or their ideal customers. And they become reactive to new marketing channels. They pivot frequently. So because they pivot frequently, they leave themselves and their audience feeling lost and confused. They feel overwhelmed with how to figure out a world that seems to be constantly changing, always trying to make sure the latest and greatest marketing tactic. That is overwhelming for a marketer, let alone an entrepreneur who's trying to run a business. And they become unable to grow their business intentionally. So the goal of this is to gain the clarity, the focus, and the intentionality that you need to accelerate the growth for your business. Because we know when we do this, you win. So think of it this way. If you were playing darts, let's say you'd never heard of the game of darts before, and you didn't understand the game, to start with, you'd just be throwing darts in any direction. You had no idea you were trying to hit a target. You didn't understand the rules. You'd just be hoping that, maybe you'd hit something of importance to the game. And then let's say that you knew that there was a target or a dartboard that you were trying to hit, but you didn't understand the different point values for the different areas of the dartboard. So again, you'd just be hoping that you hit something that was of value, but not really knowing exactly what you should be aiming for. But then let's say you knew exactly that target, that bullseye that you should get, that will get you that 10 times, 20 times, 100 times the point value. It is the same analogy for when you focus on your ideal clients, when you focus on your most valuable customers. You are, that term target market. Well, this is the same thing. You know who you're going after. You know which clients, which customers are going to be the most valuable to you to accelerate that growth. And this is what high growth companies do differently. We recently, this year, did a survey with over 500 business owners and found that the highest growing companies, so businesses that had the 20% year over year growth, what they did differently is they have a distinct competitive advantage. So they know why people choose them and why they win. 67% say that their customer focus is the primary competitive advantage to win in their market. So not only do they know their competitive advantage, they know that that is their secret sauce to winning in their market. And then 69% of closed deals from high growth companies were distinctly related to their competitive advantage. So this is what, let's say that 10% of high growth companies do different. This is what's going to accelerate your growth and take you to that next level, give you the focus that you need to grow your business with intention.
So Jodi, let me interrupt you here.
Sure.
Full disclosure, we are a client of Jodi's, so we have gone through their process and what she's talking about in this webinar. And that's why I felt so compelled about sharing it, because it was so impactful to us. But when you're talking about those numbers, I think one of the problems that we felt, or one of the problems that we had, was that we were looking at this competitive advantage from our standpoint,
Yep.
not the customer's standpoint.
Yep.
And I think that's very key. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into, right? Because we have a very high knowledge and understanding of what we do and how we do it. And so it's very easy for us to fall into the trap of, we know what is best for our customer or our client, as opposed to what is it that they value most.
Yes, definitely. We see that over and over and over again with clients. So you are not an anomaly there. You are not unique in that issue. And that is a really easy pitfall to fall into, because you built your business. You talk to customers from the beginning till now. You hear from people all the time. So why wouldn't you think that you know why they really buy from you, or what your competitive advantage really is? Of course you would think that you know that, because you've got so many hours under your belt of this time and energy and building this business. But the reality is that in most cases, especially when companies are feeling like they're not growing the way that they should, they just don't have it quite right. Now, in your case, you had a piece of it, but you didn't have it in the order that that person needed to hear it in their journey. So you are leading with a messaging that they didn't need to hear right away. They needed to hear later on in the journey. They want to hear something else to begin with to hook them, and then they want to hear the messaging that you were telling. So it wasn't that you were wrong in what you were saying. It was just that it was at the wrong time in the buyer journey. And also to focus on that ideal customer audience that you're trying to go after, focusing on them. You had never done that before either.
Yeah, and one of the things I've heard over and over is you have to have a niche. The riches are in the niches. Great. What's the niche? I mean, like, how do you figure out what a niche is?
I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to get into that today. That's the most important part of this process, is to figure out that niche and to make sure you know that it's the right one. It's the foundation that all this research and effort is built upon. If you don't get that piece right, you're not going to be pointed in the right direction. So it's a really key piece to get right. And I'll cover how to do that in today's training. Well, let's move on. What would happen if you actually knew who your best customers were, like we were just talking about? If who that niche is, who the best customers were, and why they really buy from you. What would happen if you knew that? What would happen if you knew how to find that right audience? This is exactly, this is the goal of what we're trying to achieve here. We want to find the right audience at the right place, at the right time, with that right messaging to drive the sales forward. So I'm here to tell you that you can do this. You can grow your company intentionally through customer insights. But without this, your sales will remain opportunistic and you will be unable to grow with intention, which is what the ultimate goal is, to grow with intention and stop being opportunistic with your leads and with your sales. And another thing is, and Christian, you can probably relate to this too, but this isn't just so you can make more money and grow your profits, which is a wonderful thing to do and obviously part of the goal, but this will also free you up to focus on the parts of the business that you love. As an entrepreneur, you are most likely wearing many hats, and some of those hats you love putting on and some of those hats you don't particularly love putting on, but you have to do it because it needs to get done. If you gain this focus, gain this clarity with your marketing, with your messaging, and you're getting leads in that are more qualified and you're getting sales that are a better fit for your company, it is going to free you up to focus on the parts of the business that you love. And it's going to help you craft that outcome you want for you and your business. Because we know if we're working with the wrong clients that they can really drain you and your business. Working with the wrong clients can be, emotionally draining. It can be time draining. It can be distracting to you and your team. And then another thing is that we don't want you to have to be hoping and wishing that the phone will ring for your next sale, or that, it's great when a business is growing because of referrals and word of mouth. That is amazing. That means you have a super great quality product or service. But if that's the only way you're growing and you're just hoping and wishing that that phone will ring and you can't predict what's going to happen with your leads and with your sales, that's really stressful, and that's not going to help you grow your business with intention. So at NovaReady, at the company I work at, we know how frustrating it can be for entrepreneurs to not know where their marketing spend should go, where their time and energy should go. So because of this, we've worked over the last decade developing a process that uses customer insights to help businesses build a blueprint for growth. So an actual roadmap, if you will, to know how to get from point A to point B. And we've helped businesses from startups to billion-dollar companies, which seems really weird to say billion, but it's true. We've helped small companies to big companies grow with intention. So this is why I'm passionate about what I'm telling you today. Is I've seen it work for no matter what business type you are. This can help you. We've seen, real quick, I just want to show some results from some recent customers that we've had. This was a SaaS company, and after the first month of applying the growth insights that they learned, they grew monthly leads by 275%. And not only were they getting more leads, but the leads were more qualified. So they were closing more deals because of that too. And that's within the first month of them changing things, which is phenomenal. And then another client increased their close rate from, they were closing 40% of leads. And then after applying the growth insights that we went through with them, they closed 80% of their leads. So, I mean, think about the business impact that would have on your business if you went from closing 40% of leads to closing 80%. You know, it was transformational for them. So by applying the steps we're going to cover in today's webinar, you'll be able to accelerate your company's growth on purpose. So that intentionality that I've been talking about. There's no more wasted marketing spend or jumping from strategy to strategy. And you'll have the confidence, and I think this is a huge piece of it too, is having that confidence, knowing that you're spending your marketing dollars with purpose, and you'll be able to see a return on your investment. One of the clients that we worked with, I was asking for feedback, and he said that one of his favorite things from the process, and he was actually one of the examples I just showed, was that he gained so much clarity. He felt like he had so much more headspace to just focus on what he wanted to focus on, and he didn't have to second guess things. He just knew they were headed in the right direction, and he didn't have to keep making things up or second guess decisions, which was really not what I expected him to say, but I think it makes total sense to hear that. And I love that he said that, and I want, you know, more people to experience that freedom and that clarity. So I'm excited to share this information with you today and present the tools you need to grow your business with intention. By the end of this webinar, I want you to have the practical steps that you need to gain the focus that you need and accelerate your company's growth. So I have four steps to cover today, 4 steps for growth. So let's dive into step 1. Step 1, and this is something Christian has gone through, but it's define your ideal customer profile, define that ICP. So if you attempt to be, back to the niche conversation, this is where we're going to cover that niche. If you attempt to be all things to all people, you will be nothing to no one. However, a lot of business owners are hesitant to narrow in on a target because they're afraid that they will lose sales if they focus on too narrow of a niche. And that scarcity mindset, you know, that fear of narrowing in, it's real. I hear it over and over again. You are not alone if you think that way. It is a definite real fear, but in reality,
let me interrupt you and say that, you know, our thought process when we were talking about, okay, yeah, we know if you identify a niche, and you know, usually that from our perspective was, okay, you're going to be in a specific industry,
yep.
And you're going to target a specific industry, and our thought process was, well, you know, that would be great if you could do that, but why do you need to? So, you know, why do you need to limit yourself to just those people? Wouldn't it make more sense to market to everybody, right? I mean, that's kind of it seems like a logical thing, but it's actually counterproductive.
It is counterintuitive because think about a product or service that you've heard advertised recently. What are the ones that you really gravitate towards? Are they the ones that say like, oh, this product is easy to use? Everybody says that something's easy to use. But what if somebody said, oh, this product will help you achieve your specific goal and help alleviate your specific pain? That is what's going to move the needle. People do not buy products and services, they buy based on emotions. And the thing that you need to do is hit on those specific emotions to get people engaged. It's not easy to get somebody to buy, I think you have to be like 10 times better if they're using something else to get them to switch 10 times. That's a lot. So if you're not hitting with that specific messaging, you're just noise. Another thing is that I did another presentation recently, and I did a bit of research and found that people are exposed in 2020 to 9,000 messages a day. That is insane. So if you're not getting specific with your messaging, if you're not really hitting on that target, you are just going to be noise and you are just going to be lost.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is that you're going to miss out on significant growth opportunities like revenue expansion, which I'll get into, and channel partnership opportunities, which I'll also get into, because you're not focused on a specific market segment. You can't partner up with somebody else, or you can't examine your revenue expansion, which is a huge opportunity for growth that a lot of businesses don't necessarily consider when they are thinking about niching down. It's kind of an afterthought thing, but it's a huge opportunity for growth. So in order for you to laser in on that target for growth, the ideal customer profile, or that ICP, is the place you want to start. And just to be clear, the ICP is not an individual person. The ICP is the company that's the perfect fit for your business. So you want to start with that mentality. What's the company you're trying to reach if you're a B2B company? So to define your ICP, a good exercise is to create a spreadsheet, and Christian, you did this, of your existing customers using the following questions. So the first one is, what are your segmentation capabilities? So what data points are you currently collecting about your customers that you have in your database that you can add into a spreadsheet? Do you know how many employees the company has? Do you know what industry they're a part of? Do you know their address? Things like that. What do you currently know? What are your current data segmentation capabilities? Who do you work best with? Christian, you did this, and I love that you did this. But you started your segmentation by asking your team who they work best with, who they love to work with. Because your team, they're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones that are interacting with customers, that are managing customers. Who do they love to work with? That is just genius and brilliant. I love that you did that, because the likelihood of either, who do you love working best with, or who does your team love working best with, the likelihood of those clients being a great fit for your company is huge, because they're likely the clients that embrace your process or embrace your service, that really get your secret sauce, that advocate for you, maybe tell other people about your business. That's a huge indicator of a really valuable customer.
Well, and the funny thing about that is that was completely hidden information to me. I never thought to ask. We asked our people two questions. Here's two questions I want you to answer. The client has to be someone that is growing and you like working with. That's it. Those are the only two questions. And when they identified them and we started looking at all those other data points around them, right? Yep. All the demographic or, company size, industry, whatever. It was fascinating how they sorted out, and there was a trend in there. I mean, I was like, how did I not see this? It's crazy. It was nuts.
Yeah, there is a math, or like an art and a science to this process. The art is the empathy and, who do you like working with part. And then the math is the who's the growing and what's the segmentation and what are those common trends and things. So it's a combination of the art and science, which is really key to getting this right. And of course you didn't see that. It's super impossible to see those clear trends without actually putting it down on paper, without actually doing this work. It's impossible to see that. There's too many variables that you're trying to keep track of without writing it down. So the last piece is, and this is really important too, who are the most valuable customers to you? So where do your business goals align? I hear, I live and breathe this world. So, I go to a lot of trainings or I've been to a lot of trainings on persona development and niching and all of this stuff. And so many of the courses out there, the trainings out there, they just tell entrepreneurs, like, you should define your persona, you should define your target market. But they don't tell you to actually look at your most valuable customers and consider your business goals. Actually look at the data and the numbers behind your KPIs. What are the customers that align with your revenue goals, that provide the most profit for you, that align with your goals for lifetime value or customer acquisition cost or churn goals. Have you taken the time to actually look at those real data points, and how do those customers line up with your business goals? This is when you know that you're going after that right. You think about the dartboard analogy again. This is where you're aiming for that bullseye, or you're aiming for that part of the dartboard that's going to give you the most points. You have the confidence. You're not just guessing or making educated assumptions anymore. You're seeing that data on paper. So from there, like Christian said, you'll see the commonalities and the trends, and you'll be able to focus on that ideal customer profile part of the market, that target. So once you do that exercise of documenting based on the segmentation, who you like working with, and the most valuable customers, once you start noticing those trends, like Christian mentioned, you want to actually document and write those down. So again, they don't just get lost or left just in your brain and not shared with your team. So you want to know the industry, the size, geography, where are they located, budget, opportunities that they have, what's their ideal budget like, or what's their budget capabilities, any decision-making factors of why they chose you or why they'd choose the solution, pain points, what caused them enough pain to actually go out looking for a solution or to give you their money. And then business objectives, what are they hoping to gain if they're B2B for their business? And then any notable attributes that, you want to add there too. So once you document all of this down, you will really be able to see that focus point of that ICP that will be intentional for you versus opportunistic. So this is not to say, and speaking back to that fear of missing out on other sale opportunities, you can for sure and most likely and hopefully will land deals outside of this specific ICP area. Of course, you will hopefully, land deals outside of that. The point is that your focus and your intention will be here. So anything outside of that is amazing and will definitely happen, but this is your focus and this is where you want to target. This is where you want to make sure that you're putting your marketing dollars in the right place, that you're aligning with partners that make the most sense, that you're working with the clients that are a great fit for your company, that are going to share the word, that are going to accelerate the growth of your company that much more. this is the key area where you want to start, and I know it can feel overwhelming. So we've created a tool for you that you can download so that you can do this yourself. It's a spreadsheet. You can go to go.novaready.com/ICP and download the spreadsheet. There's instructions on how to use the tool to walk you through how to use the tool. There's a Discover spreadsheet where you can actually put in your customer data and actually see those trends that Christian was talking about. And I like to say, like, the cream rises to the top. You'll be able to filter those top customers and really be able to see then trends and commonalities. And then there's another page on that spreadsheet where you can write it down and define that ICP. So go check that out if you're interested. Step 2, so we've got 4 steps. Step 2 is research the buyer persona and their journey. One thing to keep in mind is that even though the ICP is the company that you're targeting, there are actual real humans with diverse roles, challenges, and priorities in those companies. So you do need to understand how to sell to them, because you're not selling to a company, you're selling to humans. So you need to know how to attract those people within those companies, engage with them, and then ultimately sell to them. And this is where the empathy building buyer personas comes into play. There are typically 3 buyer persona types. The first one is the user buyer. So this one is the person that is most likely engaging with your sales process, the one that's downloading your resources and actually talking to your sales team. They're the primary user of your offering, and they're most of the time responsible for it once it has been purchased. There's the influencer buyer. So this is like a third-party person. You might not even know that this person exists in the buying process. They conduct additional technical insight and a voice to the purchase process. So an example that I like to give is in 2012, I think it was, I was doing research for a marketing automation tool. And because I saw the writing on the wall, we needed to automate some stuff. We needed to embrace this new technology. So I was stuck between choosing HubSpot and choosing Marketo. And, writing down my spreadsheet of requirements, they looked equal to me at the time. This was, 8 years ago. So a lot has changed since then. But at the time I was like, I do not know which one to purchase. So I asked a software engineer at the company to do like a technical audit of the different softwares, because I didn't know what was going on behind the hood. I didn't want to make such a large purchase recommendation unless it had, been vetted by somebody who actually knew if the software was good or not. So I asked him, and, he told me, he was like, HubSpot's really good. So we ended up going with HubSpot and have, no regrets with that, but that's another conversation for another time. But that's just an example. HubSpot sales team did not even know that I was involving that person in the process, but ultimately, because of that insight, that is what pointed me in the direction of which product to go with. So being aware of the influencer buyer can be really important and valuable. And then the last one is that economic buyer. So this is the person who has the final authority to sign off on the purchase. This is the tricky one. So the economic buyer can be misleading to you. So in the HubSpot example, I was the only one involved in the sales process talking to HubSpot. They did not know that I had to get purchase authority from a superior. In their eyes, I was talking like, oh, when, I'm not sure yet, I need to think through some things, I need to look at some other things. I was talking like I was the one responsible for the sale the entire time I was talking to HubSpot. In reality, I was taking information and presenting it to my boss, the CEO, and saying, you know, giving him the information he needed to know to make that decision. It was I think at the time it was like a $30,000 a year purchase decision. So it was not a small thing. I made a case to him about our leads increasing, and if we use HubSpot, we're not going to have to hire another lead qualifier. That's, $30,000 plus there. I talked about how we'll be able to close more deals because we'll be able to nurture leads in the way that they need. I gave the economic buyer the information. It came down to money. He needed to sign off on that agreement. So a lot of times that user buyer, you will think they're the economic buyer, but they're actually not. So some things you want to ask about to uncover who the economic buyer really is. After you give your okay, how does the final decision process work? Is there anybody who can veto this proposal? And is there anybody else whose approval is needed? Without asking these questions, you don't really know if you're talking to that economic buyer, and you could be missing out on a big opportunity because let's say you never talk to the economic buyer in the sales process. You can still equip that user buyer with the information that they need to sell to the economic buyer on your behalf, streamlining that process and also making, that really easy for them to sell to that economic buyer. It's a huge opportunity for growth if you understand the different personas and their roles. So once you know the personas that are within your ICP, the first step is to interview a small sample size that fit within that ICP group. Obviously, this is the foundation that everything's built on. So look through the rest of this presentation through that lens. But you want to focus your interviews on that ICP and interview a small sample size of people. Ask them questions around their pain points. What were they struggling with that led them to seek out a solution or change solutions? What was their transformational goals that they had? What were they hoping their life to look like after saying yes to something? We all have it, whether we're conscious about it or not. But if we say yes to something, we are dreaming about that desired outcome that we want to have. What was the path from when they first heard about you to how they gained trust to how they actually chose you? Were there any barriers that they had to overcome? Any questions, or anybody else's approval that they needed to get before saying yes to you? And then what was that specific criteria that led them to say yes? I'll go back to the HubSpot example. HubSpot has hundreds and hundreds of features and functionality within their tool. They have so many. The ones I cared about was like a top 5 list. I only cared about, yes, it was great to have the option of those 100, but really I was looking for a tool that did 5 things at least to start with. So what are those specific criteria that you can lead with where it's not, again, noise to them, but you're actually understanding their specific needs?
Well, and I think from our standpoint, and I see a lot of businesses, they try to tell, because they're not real clear on their focus, they want to say, look at everything we do.
Yep.
And it's kind of like having too many options at the grocery store with the jelly.
Yep.
I get analysis paralysis and I don't make a decision because I'm not going to take the time to figure out which is better.
Totally. It is a real thing too. People want, don't make me think. We have so much noise in our world every day. We just need it to be easy and need it to be clear and need it to be as simple as possible. That's what gets action, because that's what gets, somebody to trust you and to remember what it is that you offer. So many different things. So I totally agree. And it's really hard because when you're a business owner, or let's say you built a software product or have a service, you've poured so many hours, so much of yourself, so much time and energy and research into crafting this thing. You know, it's like your baby in so many ways. Why wouldn't you want to say like everything you possibly can? It is totally normal to want to say like we have this feature or we did this feature or we did this update and this thing. But the thing is that the person on the other end does not care. And that is a hard pill to swallow sometimes until you understand that they actually do care, but they don't care about it in the way that you care about it.
Right.
They care about it in the way that's going to help them and that will help them look better at their job or have a better life or whatever it is that the benefit of your product or service will offer to them. That's what they care about. But honestly, it's like a constant thing that you have to remind yourself too, because I think we get so invested in our products and services, we forget to look at it through that lens. So it's a good thing to continue to practice, even when you're an expert in it. Okay, so once you've had those conversations, and another thing I will say about the conversations, just to back up real quick, make these conversational. These are not a sales opportunity. So if you're involved in the sales process at all, do not do these calls. You want this person to feel open and you want to be curious. You want to hear their story. Put on your journalistic hat and just, ask them open-ended questions and just really hear their story. It is amazing. I've done hundreds of these calls. Over and over and over again, people love to share their story. They love to share information with their experience. It is really insightful to take the time to have, even just a handful of conversations with customers. So once you do that, you want to take what you've learned from these conversations and you want to validate your findings in a survey. So when you're doing the handful of interviews, you're casting a pretty small net. If you're going to move forward with the confidence and the clarity that we need, you need to cast a wider net. And you do that by sending out a survey and really validating the findings that you've conducted in your interviews. When you're doing the survey, the thing is that most businesses won't do this step because they assume they know their customers' motivations, what messaging to use, and when to use it in the buyer's journey. Like Christian was talking about earlier on in the call, you think you know these things. You think you know the answers, so most business owners are not going to take the time to do this. But
and you run into the problem doing it yourself, of getting confirmation bias, right? So you're kind of feeding them the answers that you think you already know.
Yep, definitely. Yep. So in order to get out of that, try to get outsiders' perspectives. Somebody that's not at your company. Start a survey and ask them to proof it and ask, for their perspective on something. Or, use somebody that's skilled in this area that has this expertise or experience. Really try and get away from the bias that you have. But I will say doing this is, even with the bias in place, is way better than not doing this at all. So don't let this hold you up. If you use the educated assumptions, it can cost you thousands in wasted marketing spend, and create a disjointed sales funnel. So without this information, these data points, you are essentially just aiming at that dartboard and not knowing where the bullseye really is. You might think you know where that bullseye is, but you don't. And you can tell that you don't because you're not growing in the way that you think you should be growing. That's the indicator. You think you're like, something's not right here. Something's not right with our marketing. We're not growing in the way we need to. What's going on? Most likely it is because you are not you're not aiming for the right target. You don't have the right messaging. You don't have that ICP defined. All right, so here's some areas for you to include in that validation survey. The segmentation information, you want to go back to that ICP. So if you define, you're going after B2B businesses that are located in the Midwest, make sure to include segmentation questions on your survey so that that align with your ICP, so that you can filter that segment with your results and really, again, bring that cream to the top and really look at examining what that key audience needs. And then you want to look at their budget, their role and responsibilities, what's it like to live in their world, what was their pain and desired outcome. You can validate that from your interviews. How did they first hear about you? What information did they need to trust you? How did they choose you? What barriers did they overcome? And then just general demographic information is great to include as well, because it will help you if you want to do, many things. But an example is, let's say you want to do LinkedIn ads. So then you know what you should target with your LinkedIn ads as far as how many employees a company has. Or let's say you want to go after and do some conferences or some speaking opportunities. You know what areas of the country to go after, things like that. It'll really help position you with the right marketing so you know where to find that ideal audience. Ooh. All right, step 3, we've got 2 more to get through. Step 3 is identify the areas to expand your value. So once you know who you're targeting along with their behaviors and their motivations, this is where you can unlock opportunities to expand revenue. By looking at you can look at other products and services to do this, as well as strategic channel partners. So let's talk through these options. The first one is the value adjacency map. So it's important to know that when your product or offering fits, it's important to know where your product or offering fits into the matrix of solutions that your customer needs. An example here is a point of sale system. With that system, there's a separate credit card processing machine. So there are 2 things needed for that ICP to accomplish their goal of actually, getting merchants in or people into their store and making purchases. Both things are needed, and they're adjacent to the value chain to customers. So sometimes there are opportunities for you to expand your core offering to include new products or services that you didn't necessarily think of until you really defined that target and really knew them, and did the research to know, okay, they actually need something else along my product and service offerings as well. An example I'll give is another client we had does construction safety staffing. So they would, for construction companies that are out on jobs, if they had people that didn't show up for work, they would supplement that safety staffing for them. But the owner was really, stressed out every month. She didn't know if there would be opportunities for her to make, sales, for her to fill roles. She didn't know how many people to keep on staff to fill those gaps for people. It was really, it wasn't predictable growth at all. Every month was a battle. So after going through this research, discovered that the customers she works best with actually don't have a safety system documented and in place that they need internally to optimize their safety practices that will get them more jobs, that will get them more projects for these construction companies. So after going through this, she has now expanded her offerings to include this consulting, which is earlier on in the purchase process. She's able to help these companies build the safety process that they need, and then they hire her team on retainer to fill in those roles that she helped them discover during the consulting phase. So they work together, and now she can have predictable growth. She can have that reoccurring revenue with the retainer that she was wanting and that she was, desperately needing. But she didn't think of that until going through this, because she wasn't aware that that was a need, even though it was, she lived and breathed this world. She hadn't seen that opportunity before. And then the other one is the strategic channel partners. So there are most likely companies that are adjacent to your offering that you can partner with. You both target the same customer. This is what we found in that research that I talked about at the beginning of this, that fastest growing companies, this is what they do. They partner. They have these strategic channel partnerships that accelerate their growth. And they do that with defining their ICP and knowing the channel partners that they would work best with to get more of that ICP customer. So this is a crazy good growth opportunity. Instead of going out and having to hunt for your leads, you're essentially getting really quality leads sent right to you without, you having to do anything other than keep that partnership in a good place. All right, and then the last step is to map this all out and to write it down and to build your buyer journey map. So to start, you'll want to write out the story of your user persona within your ICP. So the user persona within your ICP, and document their journey of how they found you, how they considered you, and ultimately how they chose you. You can add in your findings from your interviews, and you need to back up your assumptions with the data from your survey. So map out using the following elements. The first one is awareness. So what was that pain or opportunity that led them to seeking out a solution? Where did they go to seek out this solution? And how did people find you in the first place? You also want to do consideration. How do you speak empathy? Or how can you speak empathy and authority so that they trust you? What product or service criteria were they specifically looking for? What information did they need to continue down that funnel of actually choosing you as the solution to go with? And then the final is the decision. So what information did they need to choose you? What were the potential barriers that they had to overcome? What does that economic buyer need to make the decision? So you want to write this out. And the point of writing this out is that when you lay out your user persona's journey using the data from your survey, it will expose those gaps in your nurturing process and your current marketing and funnel process. And it will allow you to know the priorities of where to change your messaging, where to fill in gaps of missing information that they need, how to refine what you're saying and make it simpler and easier for them to digest. It will also help and bring clarity around your competitive advantage. So what sets you apart from others, and what is that ICP, gravitating towards when it comes to you and your company. It'll also show you where to expand growth with the right audience intentionally. So, adding additional products or services, or filling in other product or service offering gaps outside of that, or what channel partners to go with. It will show you it will give you a lot of clarity of where to go with that as well. The truth is that this is unique for each company. So there is no like fill in the specific boxes. This process is great, but you will have to do this work for your company, for your unique company. Every company is different. So again, I want to tell you about the ICP doc because this is where you'll need to start. If you don't start here, you're going to be wasting so much time and energy. This is the most important step for you to get right. So go to go.novaready.com/ICP and follow the instructions on that. It will really help to just go through this exercise. You'll gain so much clarity and focus by doing the work to do this, or by taking the time to do this. It really is enlightening to go through this process.
I can attest, and so let me clarify something that may not be obvious here. That this is not necessarily just digital marketing. So I think that it's easy to get into this mindset of, you know, it has to be all about digital. So what your website and your email and your AdWords, SEO, all this other stuff. But this is agnostic to strategy. So it doesn't really matter what your strategy of actually going and getting that message to the right customer at the right time. That's dependent upon your business and your industry and what makes sense. So this is not a digital marketing tool.
Yep.
The second thing I'll add is, you know, you keep talking about special sauce, and we all know that the special sauce is ketchup, mayonnaise, and pickles. But you know, the truth of the matter is, I can guarantee you that McDonald's knew exactly what motivated the buyer of the Big Mac versus a Whopper or anything else, because a burger is meat and bun and cheese, unless you're a psychopath. Only psychopaths order their hamburgers without cheese. It is a known, proven fact. So, I mean, there's no difference between a burger structurally, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter whether it's a $12 burger at a restaurant or the $1 junior, you know, whatever, at the fast food place. It's what that burger does for that person. And it's real easy for us to just say, well, a burger is a burger, right? I mean, an accountant's an accountant. You all do the same things. And that's where we get inward turning and we start looking at, well, what are we best at? It's not what you're best at. You put some sauce together and you come up with what is compelling to the customer.
Exactly. You nailed it. I love that analogy too. And I did not know you had such strong opinions about cheese. Good to know.
Well, I'm just telling you, it's a proven fact. Look it up, Google it. It's true.
I do know that this process can feel overwhelming, and so I am a resource for you. If you want to email me, my address is jodi@novaready.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Jodi Ann Roberts, Ann with an E. Message me, send me an email. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. I love entrepreneurs. I love helping, you get those questions answered that you have to accelerate the growth for your company. So please reach out if you do have any questions. Let's say you download this resource and, you've got some follow-up questions. Just email me and let me know. I'm happy to help. But I really appreciate you all being with us here today and going through this information. If you do this, this will be life-changing for you and your business. So I'm excited for you. I am happy that you're here today. And yeah, that's it. I got nothing else for you. This is everything.
All right. Well, thank you all for attending. I always like to say, Jodi, we wave until the camera is off, but your camera's off, so you can't. So I'll just keep waving until you end the webinar.